What's going on, Jet fans? Right here, I'm going to be breaking down a Week 3 preseason game, our 13-6 loss over the Buccaneers. We had a lot of positive and a lot of negatives, and let's get right into it. Obviously, everybody's looking at Zach Wilson in this game. You know, he was 9 of 13 for 70 yards. He had the big run down the field. Honestly, if I'm being honest, I don't think he looked that great. I think he's late with his timing still. His footwork is all out of whack. Maybe he's reading defenses a little bit better, but we got to remember this is preseason after all. He's going to be facing a lot of these vanilla defenses. And for me, he's not showing that much improvement over last year. I'm hoping that another year under this offense, maybe next year, he'll start to really get this into gear. But for me, he looked okay, nothing crazy. But let's get into some of these positives. One of the biggest positives I took away, I don't know how many Jet fans were paying attention to it, the safety play. Ashton Davis and Adrian Amos were all over the field yesterday on defense. Ashton Davis had 2 tackles for loss. He made that one really good tackle on the swing pass to the left-hand side of the field where he made an open field tackle. I don't know if he's making that a year or two ago. He seems to be making strides. He's being comfortable now that he's considered a veteran in this defense, and he could absolutely be a very reliable option as a backup safety in this Jets defense. On to my next point, let's look at the defensive line. Even though the 2s and 3s were in there, you know, Joe Douglas, Tanzel Smart, he was making plays in the backfield. Joe Douglas picked up some nice pieces in the defensive line, especially at the defensive tackle position, which seemed to be a weakness for us last year, but it looks like that's going to be shored up. We had guys on the field yesterday that would probably start for a lot of teams in the NFL. You know, Bryce Huff, for crying out loud, Jermaine Johnson, they were all over the field. We saw the Bucs start to move the ball, but that didn't really happen until later on in the game when a lot of those guys were starting to lose their reps. Let's get to another negative. Let's switch to the other side of the ball. Bam Knight. For me, Bam Knight is playing himself right off this roster. He had the fumble last week against Carolina that got overturned, but this week he lost the fumble. He was also on kick returns. He took a kickoff from 7 or 8 yards back in our own end zone and decided he was going to run the ball out of the end zone and only got to the 18-yard line. I don't see him hitting the hole as hard. Depending on what is going on with Izzy, Bam Knight might make this roster if Izzy ends up going on the PUP list. Let's see, that turned out to be not a knee injury, which many feared coming right off the field. He couldn't put a lot of pressure on it, but it looks like it's going to be some sort of thigh contusion. And let's get to the biggest positive out of all of this. Mekhi Becton graded out, I believe, at 85 overall, not allowing a sack or even a rush. He was pancaking guys left and right, but I want to take a step back. We got to remember, this was against mostly third-teamers and guys who are not going to be on an NFL roster. It'll be real interesting to see, as Brian Costello reported earlier today, that Aaron Rodgers is going to be taking snaps in the last preseason game against the Giants. That is going to be a giant tell for us, because there's no way that the Jets are going to be putting Aaron Rodgers out there without our number 1 offensive line. So if you see Mekhi Becton starting at right tackle, that is telling you week 1, Mekhi Becton's going to be our starting right tackle. I fear they're going to give Billy Turner the first shot, which scares the hell out of me. It should scare the hell out of you. They called him Billy Turnstile in Green Bay for a reason, but all positives when it comes to Mekhi Becton. He came out healthy. He looked strong. He looked like he was having a really good drive back. So those are some of the things that I took out of this preseason game. We will follow it up next week. As always, go Jets.